G'day guys, welcome back to Beers and Breakevens, brought to you by Blue Wealth Property. They make investing in property easy for you. If you'd like to reach out to Tony and the team, Blue Wealth Property on Facebook, Instagram. I think they're on TikTok too, getting into their work there. So you'll be able to find Blue Wealth Property wherever you look. I think Tony's over in America at the moment. He'll be back soon and joining us on the panel for a very, very exciting announcement. We've also got Bloke in a Bar once again on board. We're of course in Bloke Studios for another year. So shout out to Kempy doing great things. And on the 1st of February, he's got a 50-hour sale with 50% off. So make sure you're there on the 1st of Feb. One guy I know will be there, wouldn't shout on a roller coaster, so he'll be there for half price. Timmy Williams, welcome, mate.
Mate, I love a good sale. And to be honest, it's probably the least I can do for Kempy after drinking his beers every time we do these podcasts for the last 12 months. So better jump on there and get some merch because 50% off, not bloody bad at all.
He's definitely in my top 3 favourite Brisbane wingers of all time. There is no doubt about it whatsoever.
I think David Stagg might have played a game on the wing.
Snuck in there.
So bump him before if you did.
Yeah, guys. So make sure you go grab a case of Bloke in a Bar, and Feb 1st, 50% off sale for 50 hours. Now, yesterday we went through Tim Williams' team, and mate, the amount of messages I got about your outrageous fucking picks, it was crazy. People are in disarray. Like they're not surprised why you finished so low last year. It's chaos. We got my team today, which as per, a little bit roguer than usual. And, mate, I'm handing you the keys today. You're going to take over. I'm shitting myself.
What are all these messages saying they can't believe they didn't think of this bloke, and why didn't we have Reuben Cotter? Why did we even think about starting without Harry Grant? That's all good, mate. We'll get into your absolute rabble of a team today. And, yeah, I've been handed the keys to the hosting today. So I'd say I'm nervous, but that's a lie. I'm ready to rip and tear.
And I will say I will fall on my sword here. I don't have him in my team at the moment, but I think you've convinced me on Reuben Cotter yesterday.
Mate, by the time we're done with this episode, your team will be torn to shreds because you follow everything I do anyway, and then you act as if they're your own decisions. So, anyway.
Remember when I convinced you to go Kalen Ponga last year? Fuck, that worked out well for you. How good. All right, I'm hot seating. Where are we starting? Are we starting at hooker or fullback? Where do you want to kick off?
We're starting the back, mate, where you like it. Who pretty popular positions here. Who have you gone with at number 1?
I won't waste too much time here. I've gone the same as you, mate. I've gone for Teddy and Turbo. Turbo, as we said yesterday, we'll see come round 1 if he is named and whatnot. But I think this is how I will run Teddy and Turbo. I have got enough money in the bank to be able to go up if I want. But I think Teddy and Turbo is the way for me at the moment.
I'll throw one at you and said we'll get into our positional analysis in the next couple of weeks throughout the preseason. But Tommy Turbo, as we said, that's speculative of being picked in round 1, depending how that hammy's going. Do you consider just going an all-out attack at fullback with James Tedesco and Latrell Mitchell? The thing with Latrell is, mate, we got burnt bad by him last year because of the run the Bunnies had when he came back after, I think it was just after Origin 3. We avoided for that reason, and it did not matter. He killed them anyway. People are going to avoid for 2 reasons to start the season. Big price tag, and the Bunnies' draw to start the year is the worst in the NRL, the first 5 rounds. Do you just go with him?
Potentially, and I could make a heap of arguments why not to go him. And I was proven wrong week in, week fucking out last year. If I was to go a different fullback other than Turbo, mate, the one that has caught my eye is Scotty Drinkwater. That's probably the direction I'd be going as a little pod player. I love their opening draw. They play Raiders in Townsville. Game 1, Brisbane at Suncorp. Game 2, they play the Warriors up at Townsville. Game 3, Game 4 is the Titans in Townsville. And then for the first time in round 5, they leave Queensland to play the Bulldogs. And then round 6, they welcome the Dolphins back to the Dolphins to North Queensland, and then they play the Warriors. So I really like the draw of the North Queensland Cowboys. And there's a Cowboy that we'll talk about very soon that I am locked and loaded into my team that I love to start this season. But Scotty Drinkwater is another one that I would seriously consider.
So Scotty Drinkwater, I suppose the slight issue I'd have with him is that Cowboys had an unbelievable year last year. Scotty was big. He averaged 71 points. So it was obviously based off that, his price. I suppose end of the season, and it doesn't matter for the end of the season because you're targeting that easy run early. Does he average over or under 71?
I think he'll go well and surely over 70.
For the season?
Not for the season, sorry, for that starting run.
Right.
For the season, I'm not too sure. But as you said, I don't give a fuck about the season.
And then after that first 5, 6, 7 rounds, could be that perfect little, hopefully, in your eyes, a downgrade to Latrell.
Yeah, or a downgrade to Turbo.
True. Yes.
Which would sort of be my play, I think. I think I would go with Drinky. And as we said yesterday, you've got until the start of round 5 to look at Turbo. That's if he comes back and plays round 3, round 4. So then I could consider a downgrade there. But I think Drinky start. I think the Cowboys start very well. And I think Drinky starts well.
Let's get into your centre wings. And before we get to your absolute massacre of the rest of your back line, your Cowboy, Val Holmes, you touched on him, and I assume that would be off the back of the draw as well. Same reason as a little bit of interest in Scotty Drink.
Love Val Holmes this year. Absolutely love him. He's obviously lost Jewel. He's only CTW. I think that will push a few people off him, as will the price. But I just think he's going to have a huge start to the season. As I said, I love the Cowboys. Their start, I think he obviously been the goal kicker. Their strike outside back. I am very, very big on Val Holmes, and I'm actually... It's a bit of a bold strategy, which you'll obviously point out in a minute, but I'm starting with a little bit more strike in my CTWs than what I usually would. Pending cheapies, obviously, things can change as we know, but at the moment I really like the strike of Val Holmes, having him there. It's a risk I'm willing to take.
It's funny, about 2 weeks ago we sort of started getting into our probably more formal SuperCoach chat for the season. Team Picker came out, we got a bit excited, and you were talking through your first sort of draft of your side, and you had a lot of cheapy CT dubs in there, and I gave my reasons why that's a little bit risky and why that could change. And I'm looking at your team now, and all of a sudden you've got 3 guns in there.
As we said off the top of the show, it's great when you can write your own narrative in the hot seat. It's unreal, and I miss it desperately. But yeah, look, there was... To be fair, I think these 3, I've got 2 Penrith Panthers, which you'll touch on in a minute. I'm pretty sold on them and have been for a while. The rest will be all cheapies and placeholders, unless more pop up. But I really like Val Holmes and my 2 Panthers at the moment.
Yeah, so your first Panther you touched on there, Jamin Salmon, mate. Bold pick.
Yeah. What does Ricky call him?
Oh, weak-gutted something.
Weak-gutted dog.
Mate, probably not much better than Jamin Salmon to start the year at his price, but Isaac Tungo, an interesting choice at, 627K. What's your logic there?
My logic here is that I've watched this guy come through the grades. I spoke about him very highly last year. He was very impressive. There's no doubt about it. I still don't think you've seen anywhere near his best. I think that, we spoke about all last year, the role that Viliami Kikau played, where he was essentially, going on the outside of Isaac Tungo running that overs line for him. And I think that changes a little bit this year. I think Isaac became the best decoy in rugby league on the best edge, which is great to be there. But on all their attacking plays, he was hardly ever touching the fucking ball. He was doing the hard work and not getting any points for it. I think this year with Luke Garner coming in, we spoke about it yesterday, I think his strongest asset is his line running. So I just think you'll see a lot more of a traditional left edge from the Penrith Panthers. I like their draw early. It's hard for the Panthers to have a bad draw realistically. But I love Isaac Tungo this year. You have a look, I think he scored 11 tries last season. He had 12 taken off him, though, which obviously I had him in draft, so I watched him very fucking closely. Cost me about 8 first try scorers, but we'll save that for another day. I think he can score a heap more tries this year. I think his base is sensational. Love his base. I think when he's playing that role, and you can see him just getting a little bit more ball, I think he can push his base into the sort of 40-point range, the way that he plays. The other thing I love... Taylor May is going to be out for the first 2 weeks, you would assume, or I'm assuming Brian Toto probably jumps onto that edge. I'm also going to be starting with him. He's my other Panther. So I'm looking to stack that left edge. They play the Broncos round 1 at Penrith. I think Penrith are in for a huge year, and I think that losing Kikau is going to hurt, but I think it just...
the poor last couple of years.
But I think going for the 3 in a row, Stephen Critter's announced he's not going to be there, and I think that now you take Appy out, I think it puts a big emphasis on Nathan Cleary and Jerome Luai. And I'm really expecting them to go to another level. And I think that left edge, I think it just simplifies everything they do. And I think you'll start to see Isaac Tungo, the skill set he's got, which you saw it in bits and pieces last year. But I think for the most part, his ceiling was wasted in that team last season.
A few things to unpick there, because it's definitely almost the most intriguing pick of your side. The first one that you've mentioned a few times, you mentioned it last podcast, and you've just mentioned it again. It's chasing those combinations and how Your initial thought is to go for them and go, all right, if one scores, the other one scores. What if one goes shit and the other one goes shit? It can be
potentially, yeah.
It's a bit of a high risk, high reward play.
If I was picking the Titans left edge, it would be. I don't think in the Penrith side.
Well, mate, that's what brings me to it because, and we'll get to him later, but you said that you love Tana Boyd now that Dave Fafita's with him, and you said, you've got one, why not have the other? Well, that is the Titans.
Yeah, but that's not an edge. That's a half and their best player on the field. And Tana Boyd's also 300k.
Yeah. Okay, so
Can we compare some apples and apples, please, for fuck's sake? What is going on here?
But you love a combination.
Oh, I do like a combination, yeah. And I mean, look, I would still have these two, even if Brian Toto was starting on the right. I think he's a guy that nearly everyone should have. And I just think Isaac Tungo is in for a massive season off the back of the role that he played last year and how it changes and how I see the Penrith Panthers changing how they play. I think he will get a stack of ball there, and I'm very confident a 60-point average turns into, at absolute minimum, a 65, but I think it'll be higher than 70.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I see the argument. I'm not keen on Tungo. I want to see how that left edge at Penrith plays out. And we touched on a little bit in yesterday's podcast, but the left edge with one player difference changes completely. I get what you're saying. You've got hard-running Luke Garner running that line, which should, in theory, create the space out wide for Isaac Tungo. At the same time, no Api Coruscant, no Viliami Kikau. Does the right edge of Nathan Cleary and Brian Toto start, or Toto once he's back to his right, if he doesn't start there, does that start to see more ball? Does that worry you? And I think you're right in that the style of having a hard-running Garner as opposed to Kikau, who just did everything, it could suit Tungo. And Tungo, as you said, used to run that hard unders line and Kikau would sweep out the back and they just hit Kikau. So he might get earlier ball, but there are a lot of uncertainties around there. Oh,
for sure, but that's how I play SuperCoach. I back what I think is going to happen. It worked out for me last year, so I'm going to go at it again. I'm not going to, and this is why when I started this show, I brought you on. You're the expert here, but I like to go a little bit different. It's worked for me so far since I've been sitting in this chair. I'm going to back my gut in here. I think that the Isaac Tungo we saw last year, as I've said a few times, and pre-season last year I spoke about him for 6 fucking months. He has got so much attacking upside that we haven't even seen yet. People don't understand how good this guy is yet. And that might sound crazy, but people don't.
All good, mate. You do you.
No, mate, I will. Don't worry.
And we'll see you change your mind come round one a lot of times. So the rest of your CT dub is cheapy placeholders. We touched on yesterday, but very subject to change. But you've got Skelton, Howarth, Khan Pereira and Tavare.
Yeah, Skelton, I think that Bulldogs side, it's going to be interesting now. There are rumours that Perham could play fullback, which would move Jake Avrillo to the centres, which means you've still got Braden Burns. So I'm hoping we get a Bulldog centre. I've got Skelton there. You had Alamotti. I'm happy to go either way, depending on whoever gets named there. I just really hope one of them gets named there. Tafade, I'm very high on. Whether he starts round one or not, we'll have to wait and see. Branko's already injured at the moment. He's done another calf. So hopefully he can get an opportunity. But there are a couple of outside backs up there at the Dolphins. It looks like Ewan Aitken won't be in the back row. So whether they bench him or have him in the centres, there's a lot of things still in his way. He'll play centre.
He has to.
I'm not convinced he will. I'm really not. You need to have good punch off your bench in this competition.
He's also nearly,
I think he wants to play back row too.
So what, he comes on at lock?
Yeah, I think so.
It's weird.
It's weird. They're a weird side.
I wouldn't mind it if they had good outside backs, but they don't.
They don't.
So it's okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think that Tafade needs a few things to fall his way to get in. Khan Pereira, he's one that I'm very excited about. I mentioned him a little bit throughout last year. Lightning quick. The rumours are that he will get a spot on the wing. We'll wait and see with the Gold Coast Titans. I think he's the only one that hasn't been announced to have a position in the team as it stands right now. But rumours are that he will be there. So he's another one, placeholder if he gets in. Keen. Jack Howarth, we spoke about him yesterday. I think there's a few Melbourne Storm boys that could end up in my side, our sides. Once again, we'll wait for trials and see. But I just think Howarth, I think it was pretty evident when he played that trial last year, as high as we all were on him. I think it showed last year that he probably wasn't ready for the physicality of first grade. I think it was pretty evident what the Melbourne Storm did last year. They kept him in reserve grade all year. I think with Howarth and some of these young guys, you got to remember, Timmy, that because of COVID, they missed out on their opportunities to play footy against grown men.
Yeah.
They went from high school to all of a sudden getting 5-year contracts in the Melbourne Storm in his situation. So I do think they will ease him in. He might be a slow burn, but he is incredibly talented. There's a lot of other CTWs which we'll talk about when we get to their positions. But those are the guys I've got shoved in there at the moment.
There's a lot of CT dubs. It's always such a fascinating position because it is high risk, high reward.
Yep.
And I think on the early, what I'm sort of seeing in my side, your side, speaking to a few others the last couple of days, people are trying to work out that, not necessarily a premium centre wing, but that 500 to 600k bloke just to solidify what is such a volatile position. And there's a million different options. So I'm really looking forward to that positional breakdown that we do in coming weeks. On to your 5'8", and we've both got Josh Schuster. Obviously, I don't think we need to elaborate on that one too much. Matty Burton, you've got at 5'8". We spoke yesterday, and I've got Adam Dwayne at the moment. I was a bit on the fence with it, but you've gone in the direction of Burton. How locked in would you say he's in your position? And New Look Doggies?
He's reasonably locked in because I'm not seeing any other value anywhere else. We spoke yesterday, your Bud Sullivans of the world, these sort of guys, I can't trust them. 1, to score points, 2, to be in the Dragons team. So Matt Burton, I don't love the pick, and I'm not super confident that Canterbury side is going to be the juggernaut we're all anticipating they will be. But I just think that if they can improve at all, he's the goal kicker, he's got the strike edge. I just think that Burton could be a handy one. I'm far from locked into him, but I'm not seeing anyone that I like any more than him without going to your Munsters and your Dill Browns, which I ideally don't want to do.
I can't wait to that left edge at the Bulldogs.
Yep.
It's like, after years in the darkness, poor old Bulldogs fans, I think the light at the end of the tunnel is just this left edge that has come together. And for Matty Burton, who has one of the best show and goes in the game, and you give him an ounce of space, he's so big and strong that they just don't stop him near the line. He's now got Viliami Kikau running outside of him. So if a hesitant little half holds off him just half an inch because they want to get in front of Viliami Kikau, he's just going to go, whack, thanks for coming, isn't he?
And I think even if the ball gets past Kikau, you got Josh Adokar, who has a sixth sense for where Matt Burton's going to be.
Yeah.
They just find each other. So I think Matt Burton is the best option there at the moment. As I said, I'm not glued to him, but I just can't see anyone else jumping out at me. And I have got about 400k in the bank, so I could go to a Munster if I wanted to. But I think there's other spots I'd rather upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, dare I say it, I don't think I've ever taken any of your advice on board when it comes to SuperCoach, but you might be swaying me towards Matty Burton with this chat, mate.
Yeah, I just... Dwayne's a good player, but I don't know, especially now that we know he's not going... Well, it sounds like he's not going to have an Isaiah Papali'i on his edge too. I can't do it with Dwayne.
Matty Burton. And sometimes you can overthink SuperCoach and look at the team they're playing in, the draw coming up, all those things. Every SuperCoach on the planet has been burned by it in the past and will be burned again as soon as round one. Sometimes you just have to look at the class, and Matty Burton is a star.
Yeah, I love everything about Burter. I love watching him play too. If I have to sit and watch the Tigers for the first 4 or 5 weeks, I'm going to be pulling my fucking hair out, I think. So
early season draw of Manly, out in Manly, into the Storm, Tigers, Warriors, Cowboys, Bunnies. So tough enough, but there's some decent opportunities in there. Tigers, Warriors for 2.
Yeah, for sure. And, for all we know, they could be the real deal. We'll wait and see.
Yeah, if they come and hit their straps and fire early, well, he could average 90, couldn't he?
Yeah, and I mean, I also, if Pappy isn't fit for round one and Munster all of a sudden finds himself in a fullback jersey, conversation might change. Parramatta, with all their changes, I'm a little bit hesitant on Dill Brown coming off the high that they did. I think it's very likely I start with Burter.
Yeah. Onto your half-back slot, and Nathan Cleary and Nico Hines. It'll be enormously owned. My question here is anti-pod opportunities. We speak about pods over and over again on this. Point of difference players, I love an anti-pod. Where are the masses going? Let's go against that because there's such opportunity in it. Could you see yourself not starting with Cleary or Hines, or is there merit in the decision, or is it just lock them in?
I think it's lock them in. I understand where you're coming from, but I think these two are just simply too good that if your antipod does very well and these two do average, they probably square up. And I can't take the risk of Nathan Cleary or Nicho Hynes playing good football. It's too much of a risk for me.
Penrith start the year with Broncos, Bunnies, bye, Eels, Raiders and Manly. It's quite a difficult start to the year, and that bye in between makes it even more awkward. If that was the Sharks draw, and the Sharks have a relatively tough draw too, I could consider antipodding Nicho early on at 900k, but Cleary's a different beast. He didn't average as much as Nicho last year. Nicho got the Dally M, but Cleary you have to own, don't you?
I think so, and this is going to be the big challenge of my team. If I'm running with Isaac Tungo and Brian Toto, that buy in round 3, I'm going to have to really back them to do well in round 1 and 2.
Yeah,
which is what I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah. Sharkies start with Bunnies and Eels, so tough first round into the Raiders, no chance there. But then it goes Dragons, Warriors, bye of their own. So tough first few, but then not too bad.
But to be honest with you, with Nicho Hynes, I'm not. They're going to score points at some point in those games. You know who they're going to come from. And if not, he's going to find a way to score 50 or 60 points. He just does.
Yeah.
So.
And if he starts and goes 40-40, you know there's a 180 coming after it, and then it'll balance out to 80-90 average, whatever it is. Mate, moving on to the back row, and you've gone with the bloke we touched on earlier, Big Fifi.
Yeah, I just think, he looked so average last year to me, and his points were still great. They've got Foz there, they've got Sammy Verrills, they've put Tanner Boyd there, which I'm not sure if it's the right decision, but I can see it being the right decision. I think it's got potential to be the right decision. So I'm more than happy to take a punt on Fafita. I said it to you yesterday. He's an 8 foot, 130 kilo insurance policy. I just don't want to risk not having him.
I've mentioned this story before, but I remember it was about 2 years ago now, watching Dave Fafita as a non-owner when a lot of people jumped on him, and I held off for a week. It might have been a high break even or something, and he scored, was it 3 tries in that one half against the Bunnies?
There's nothing worse than a Sunday afternoon hiding behind the lounge watching Fafita put on a fucking show with 4 touches of the football.
Like it kills you. Even if you have just 40, I just don't want to put myself through that again. I'd prefer it than to be
just pay up and deal with it.
Yeah. Mate, Luke Garner, one we spoke about on yesterday's podcast, looks a pretty popular pick on the left edge for Penrith. Question there, is he locked into that role, or do we see Hosking? Is he competing for it, or is it Luke Garner?
Oh, I think he's competing for it, but if I had to put a percentage on it, I'd say 90% Garner, and that might be unders, realistically. I think Garner's just about got it locked up. Can't rule out Hoskins. There's obviously trials and everything. Plenty of water to go under the bridge. The interesting thing about Penrith is that their trials, it's a World Club Challenge. So I think you'll have a really good idea what this Penrith side is going to look like.
Great shout.
Very early.
Yeah. It'll nearly be, barring any niggles, it'll be 1-17.
I think it just about will be 1-17. I think they're playing it out there at Penrith. It'll mean a lot for the community. I think the Penrith boys will go all in.
They will. They absolutely will. Great call. I wish there were other teams with big games like that where you knew they were locking in a 17, because Penrith's run a line where we pretty well know what it's going to be. Anyway.
I think the other team, because obviously in the trials, there's 2 weeks of trials. Penrith played the World Club Challenge in one of them. The other week of trials, obviously one team doesn't have a game. So I think that team, is it St Helens that won the Super League?
Yeah.
I think. So do you know who they're playing in the other game? Speaking of teams that it's good to see their full side. Dragons. The fucking Dragons.
Good God. The Saints versus the Saints.
Yeah. But wouldn't you rather just see any other relevant team play a team from England, probably put out their full squad and have a real crack?
St Helens will beat them by 50, and the Pommels will be crowing that their Super League stronger than the NRL. Like, oh, you chose the Dragons. Come on.
And we'll still have no idea what the Dragons look like in round 2 when their season starts. Nightmare.
Mate, you four cheapy placeholders for now. Hopgood, Stone, Mooney and Blore. We touched on Blore yesterday around the John Bateman chat. You mentioned that you had a bit of mail that maybe Bateman will play lock.
Yep.
What does this do for Blore's credentials?
I think it'll lock him into that right edge for the West Tigers if that comes through. If not, it's a very different conversation with Blore, and he might be one of the most unlucky guys to play first grade, unfortunately. But yeah, if Bateman does land in the 13 jersey, Blore will be on the right edge outside Dwayne, which, to be honest with you, I don't love my back rowers outside Dwayne. He's run or throw a 15-metre cutout. So I still think Blore at 234k We know the upside he's got. I'm more than happy to give him a run, and hopefully he gets through injury-free.
The big watch will be with the forward cheapies. Like, we know the backline cheapies will play 80 minutes, but they could score 4 tries and get 140, or they could have 3 runs and score 7 points. The forward cheapies are so pivotal to the early scoring and team structure.
Yep.
Because if we get starting forwards like Sean Bloor, irrelevant of, who he's outside of, like, he'll get his base stats and he should churn out, minimum 35 to 40 at worst. He could get through a stack of work and have 60 in base, we don't know, but so important for the team. But if we don't, we're relying on CT dub cheapies to, even knock out that 30 or 40 for us. And if we don't get any decent forward cheapies, it sort of makes you go, we're going to have to spend up for them in CT dub, but do you bring in higher, more mid-range CT dubs that will score a bit better? It's a fascinating part of the preseason and part I love about it and love watching the trials. Mate, your front row forward position.
Mate, this is where I look at my 2RF cheapies and compared to my front row forward cheapies, they don't worry me in the fucking slightest.
Yes. It's
going to be tough.
Yeah, mate, your front row forward position, very different to mine. We'll start with the big boy. DSAF, Dan Saifidi, 484K. A bit of hype around him around pre-season. We know what he's done in the past. What's been hard to peg down with Saifidi is just minutes and role, and O'Brien seems to throw him all over the shop. What do you like about him?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. After yesterday with you talking Ruben Cotter, I'm leaning towards upgrading Saifidi to Cotter. But Saifidi, I still think at 480K, yes, there's been an issue for a number of years working out his minutes and output and everything to do with Daniel Saifidi looks so good, and then it can be disappointing at times. I just think with Clemmer leaving, I just think there has to be more minutes there for this guy. And it's, as far as his forward pack goes, it's his fucking pack now. He's the alpha in this side. If Newcastle are to be a half-decent side, are to, have a crack at trying to play finals footy, he needs to play big minutes and have a big impact. Whether he does or not, I don't know. But he's a guy that I think is a little bit undervalued there. And as I said, mate, front row forward is such a fucking basket case. I don't think there's any guns that interest me. There's no one I feel safe about. And I don't feel safe about Saifidi, but he is a guy that I'm willing to take a punt on.
I don't. There's a very good Supercoach play in Saifidi when the minutes are there.
Yeah.
So last season, I say that. He averaged 52 minutes last season for 46 points. The year prior, 54 minutes for 59 points. And the year before that, 48 minutes for 63 points. So essentially what I've just said about he's good when the minutes are there just fell flat on its head, because he actually has a better PPM, a lot better PPM when he plays fewer minutes. So maybe it's more about form for Saifidi than getting those minutes.
But I also think that Saifidi over his career or over the last few years, he's never been the alpha in this Newcastle pack. It's always been Clem. Last year, Clem, I think he averaged 62 minutes here. For me, and it's not like a Supercoach thing, but it's a footy thing. When you're handed the keys to a forward pack and you're the alpha in that side, you need to fucking step up. So that's what I'm banking on with Saifidi. As I said, I do love the Cotter shout. Got the money to do it, and I'm probably leaning towards that at the moment. But Saifidi is probably my favourite of the guys that's in that 400 or 500K range.
Yeah, and it's a low-key, really important part of round one is finding these 4 to 550K price mid-range front rowers that they're not going to make or break the start of the season, but there is going to be a handful there who have better roles or start the season well, and they get to 600K, even if they don't hold that for the rest of the season, and they become your ticket to the fallen Joe Tapney or Payne Haas, whoever it might be. So, and look, Saifidi fits the billing for that. He could be. I don't mind the play. Again, let's see how he goes in the pre-season trials. Now, mate, a couple that I didn't have: Sean Kepi and Big Davey Moali.
Yeah, Moali. I don't know what his minutes are going to look like. I'm not sure if his role changes that much from last year, but I just think South Sydney are easing him in year on year. For people that didn't watch him coming through the grades, I think eventually he's going to be a very good Supercoach player. He's got a lot of tackle breaks in him, nice little offload. So whether this is the year or not, I'm not convinced. If you said to me you're not starting with Moali, I wouldn't push back on you at all. But at 234K, he's one that I'm looking at. we'll get an idea of the makeup of South Sydney's side. We'll get to see them in trials. They'll play the Charity Shield, obviously, so we'll get to see, hopefully, close to their full side there. But yeah, Mawali, I could happily exchange him for other options in the front row, but he's the one I'm leaning towards at the moment. Kepi, 274K, a little bit more expensive, still pretty cheap. I just think Manly, me and Matty went through their best 17 the other day. Forwards are very weak. Front row is very weak. I think that it'll be Aloye and either Kepi or Paseka start the game. I sort of think I'd lean towards starting with Kepi over Paseka. I think I'd bring him off the pine.
They've shown a tendency to do that with Paseka as well. A bit of a, I suppose, in a soft Solomona role at Melbourne, where just the big body coming on after 20 minutes and the wrecking ball.
But you just don't get it enough out of Paseka.
No.
Which is the worry. So I don't know.
Do you think it matters to Kepi's minutes much whether he starts or benches, or will it be around the 35 to 40 regardless?
I think it'll be... I think one of them will get about 10 minutes more than the other. That would be my prediction. Yeah, I think the starter will get about 10 more minutes. So ideally, I want him to land there. If Kepi plays 30 minutes coming off the bench, it's far from ideal, don't get me wrong. I would rather more, but I think I can deal with that. But yeah, Kepi, I think he's got a bit of upside, and I think if it works out at Manly and, if they happen to have a preseason injury or an early injury in the forward somewhere, I think all of a sudden he becomes very valuable. Because you have a look at their side at the moment. You got those three. You got Aloye, either Kepi or Paseka, then the other one will be on the bench. Mate, the only other front rower they've got that's played first grade at the Cub is Sipley, essentially.
Gee, they're light, aren't
they? They're very light, yeah. And then your other bench spot will be taken up by a Burbo, a Bullimore, one of these guys. So Marty Tapau's obviously left. So I just think Kepi, there is a bit of upside there. But this is the one position that every single of the four players could change for round one, and I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Has Tapau landed anywhere yet?
Parramatta, reportedly, that's what I've heard, is going to land over the next few days or next few weeks.
It'd be a handy pickup.
Yeah, if you get the best out of him, yeah.
But I mean, like, at the very least, like 25 minutes off the bench. It wouldn't have to be a big minute.
If Marty Tapau is your third choice, fourth choice front row, which he would be at Parramatta, it's pretty handy.
You could do some damage off the pine.
Yeah, for sure.
Mate, moving on to your hookers. And here's an interesting one that has obviously come to light in recent days with the reported makeup of the Titans' spine, that it's believed to be running out as Tana Boyd at 7 alongside Kieran Foran, and then at fullback, AJ Brimson. So Tana Boyd, dual halfback hooker, 384K. You've got him alongside the cheese.
Yeah, I got Tanner Boyd at the moment. Didn't have him a few days ago. I've been very keen on Jaden Brayley last few weeks, but KP getting injured, as crazy as it sounds, like it shouldn't have a huge impact on Brayley, but I think it will, because you've got Brayley, Adam Elliott, Jackson Hastings, Kalen Ponga, and then you've got Miller at fullback, assuming that signing comes through. None of these guys have played football together. KP being the star and all that and missing the next few weeks of their preseason. He'll probably be there round one from what I've gathered, but missing those key, how important combinations are in your preseason. That worries me a little bit. I still think there's a lot of value in Jaden Brayley, and people will laugh at that, and that's fine.
I think Brayley's a horrible buy. So on that note, I'm going to try and swing him back to you. With Ponga out, with Ponga there, he's just going to dish. With no Ponga.
Yeah, see, I don't think he will. I think that's easy to assume, but I think Jaden Brayley's got a lot more upside than what you're giving him credit for. And
that's what I mean. I think he will run more without...
Okay, potentially, yeah. But I just don't think Newcastle will be the same side without KP. I worry about where their points come from.
Jaden Brayley, please.
We'll see.
So Tana Boyd.
Yeah, ever since that news a few days ago, I'm leaning towards that. You took the piss out of me before, but I have got Fafita as well. I'm happy to run with that combination at the price Tana Boyd's at. If he was at 500K, I wouldn't be doing it. But at the price he's at and the way that he finished last season as well, despite it being, not the greatest opposition, he played halfback against Melbourne. Didn't do too well there, to be fair. Scored 35 points in Melbourne. Still as a halfback that for the Titans against Melbourne, it's not a train wreck. After that, played Manly, 79, played St George, 51, played Newcastle, 59, and finished with the Warriors, 77. Came up with a lot of attacking stats in those games.
Big finish.
big finish. But look, as I said on Bloke in a Bar the other day, Manly were in free fall, Dragons were in all sorts of curry. Newcastle win Newcastle, and the Warriors playing their last game before this nightmare fucking finishes. So I don't know how much. I'm not expecting those sort of points, but I think I can get a 50-point average out of Tanner Boyd playing halfback with Fafita outside him, hopefully utilising him like he has throughout his entire life.
And structurally where our sides differ as it stands is that with you going Boyd there over Harry Grant, it saves you about 400k. It's allowed you the other strike centre. So you've bolstered your centres. I've gone for Harry Grant, essentially.
Essentially, yeah, to start.
And for that to be worthwhile to start the season, off the top of my head, if Harry Grant can average 70 and Boyd can do that 50, well, then you come out a winner. But, has to happen. But, yeah, a goal-kicking halfback, Titans, pretty good draw to start the year. Job security is going to be an issue.
It's also the money that I'll make off the back of Tanner Boyd as well.
Exactly.
That I like. Yeah.
Which will sort of balance out the 300k you'll lose in Isaac Tungo.
Well, we'll see. Oh, you're going to be apologising very quickly to me, my friend. I cannot fucking wait.
I haven't done it before. I'm not going to start now, mate.
Brandon Smith. We spoke about him yesterday. I can't take a risk of not having him. At 478k, I just think he's worth having there. So, that's my side, mate.
It's I've seen worse.
Yeah, I'm not a cookie cutter like yourself, though. I like to go a little bit rogue and make my way up there.
One thing I've learned about SuperCoach over the years...
No bite there? Nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing at all?
One thing I've learned, a bit of wisdom I'll pass on to you, mate.
Beat the shit out of the steering wheel later, that's fine.
Yeah, it's a long year, so I'm sort of just trying to hold it in and not blow up too early, but it's that there's nothing wrong with cookie cutter. It's when I pick my team, I sort of go a lot off the back of my own sort of thoughts and processes. I'll take a little bit of advice on board, but... You don't need to go, I know it's fun, but you don't need to go for pods and left field routes and outside the box to win SuperCoach. People think you do. They're like, oh, you need to jag this pod or this pod and just nail them at the right time. You don't. Like, it's a complete myth. It doesn't mean you can't, but and it doesn't mean going the plain Jane route and going the popular options. It's a bit boring. Pods
like, you're speaking like a guy that's won SuperCoach.
Well... Sorry.
If you're not first, you're last, I've got to tell you.
Yeah, you don't need... you can go the plain Jane route and you can come second. I'm over this shit, mate. You take your lane.
Now, tell me this, though. You're the expert here. I've got 460k still sitting in my bank. If I handed my team to you right now, what would you do to it?
I suppose first things first, under the microscope here, but... And again, there's no right or wrong amount, but you want to be going in, or I often try to go into round one with anywhere from probably 80 to 200k in my bank, because we know it's the most important trade period of the season's round after round 1 and 2, before those price changes occur. So you need a bit of flexibility to make these moves. Anything more than 200k, and you're like, that's money you need to be spending across your squad. You're starting behind the 8 ball, I think. If I'm looking at your squad there, maybe you could get it. As I said, I'm happy not to spend up on front rowers, so I think your front row is fine. Probably a back rower, to be honest. And if all the players you've got there and all the cheapies look good, and they're all starting or look like they play good minutes, they'll be hard to ignore. If all those back rowers do get the decent minutes we're anticipating, maybe you can plug in a fourth good centre wing and avoid that risk there. So, mate, there's a few different avenues you can do it, but.
I think I'll spend 200 of that 400k I've got on Ruben Cotter. I think you've convinced me there, and I think it'd be good for me to have a more consistent score in there as well.
Like you could nearly use. I know it's a big chunk of that, but you can change it. I think 400k of that and turn Kepi, Moali, Pele, one of them blokes into Cotter.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden you've got Saifidi and Cotter starting front row, which looks pretty rock solid.
Yeah. I'm as I said, the Saifidi one, I like him, but I'm not completely sold. He has stung me. There's been a few Saifidis that have stung me in the past, more than one, obviously. But yeah, so
and the way you look at it, you're all right. Kepi, Moali, Pele, they might make, if they do a really good job, they might make 200k. Expectation, maybe they make 100k, which is about borderline for cheap, where you're like, all right, it's a pass mark, 100k increase. I'm anticipating Ruben Cotter does that as well. So you're still making the money.
Yeah.
And if Cotter does come out and hit the expectations that sort of I'm definitely giving him, well, people are going to have to trade to get him in. You've made the 100K. It offsets it.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, so, mate, that's where I'm sitting at the moment.
Not bad.
Not bad?
Speaking of pass marks,
what would you give me out of 10?
What's satisfactory? 5, I suppose?
Yeah, I think a 5.
5 out of 10.
5 out of 10. Yeah, right. Fuck. Oh, I'm feeling confident.
Nah, it's all right.
I like what I know what we said about pods and everything, but I do like to go a little bit different. It's how I play SuperCoach.
It's way funner.
It's heaps funner.
Yeah.
It's heaps fucking funner. And yeah, I just think it'll be interesting to see. Penrith got this bye round 3. That's the other thing. Got To'o, I got Isaac Tungo. If it isn't working for me, I can downgrade them to one of the cheapies that I don't have for round 3 as well.
Exactly.
So I don't mind that I have got that safety blanket as well.
And that's the beauty of the early season SuperCoach. I'm going Harry Grant. If he comes out and goes 50-50 and Boyd goes 70-70, I'll cash him in before that price drop and make 400K.
Yeah. All right.
All right, mate. Back to you,
have I got out alive?
Yeah, you're right. I'm done with you.
All right, guys. Thank you for joining us once again on Beers and Breakevens. If you want to reach out to the team at Blue Wealth Property, make sure you do. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere you can find Tony and the team. Make sure February 1st, we got a 50-hour, 50% sale for some bloke in a bar gear that is unreal. You're not going to want to miss it. And then next week, mate, we will be back on Wednesday and Thursday. We'll have 2 episodes. We'll be diving into 2 positions each day. It's taking a deep dive, so I'm expecting those to be pretty lengthy episodes. Yeah. Really keen for those. So we'll let you know during the week what positions we're doing, but we'll be back next Wednesday and Thursday for Beers and Breakevens. Cheers, legends.